Yo, welcome, family. I was gonna say sneaker family, but really, you know, we're bigger than just sneakers. So welcome, family. You all are welcome here at the picnic known as the Outside the Box podcast. I happen to be one of the voices you hear on that show, and my name is Jacques Slade, aka Cousteau. But of course, you didn't come here to hear me. You came here to hear the beautiful, intelligent, articulate, well thought out, just the two smartest people that I know when it comes to this sneaker thing. And I'm talking about Nick Engvall and Tiffany Beers. Nick, tell them where they can find you.
There's a lot of pressure this episode already, and we just got into it. So my name is Nick Engvall. I've worked in the sneaker industry for about a decade, and you can find me at Nick Engvall on all platforms, and also at Sneaker History on all platforms. But really, I think all of those beautiful descriptive words are about Tiffany, who we both just really want to learn from. So Tiffany, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Tiffany Beers, and you can find me at Tiffany Beers on Instagram and YouTube. And these two, I mean, it's like they give themselves no credit, you know? It's the Jacques Slade and the Nick Engvall. I'm so honored to be here. I can't say Nick's last name yet, but I'm working on it.
Well, I feel better that Tiffany Beers called me the Jacques Slade. I'm gonna that's a bit of a feather in my cap. So I'm gonna make sure I wear that super proud. But speaking of being really, really proud, I just want to say thank you to the audience. You guys have been amazing. You guys are incredible. The feedback that we get online and the way that you guys just talk back to us. You know, this is a two-way conversation. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. And with that being said, we're going to kick off this show actually with some thoughts from the audience because we really think you guys are important and you guys really make this show what it is. And we're going to start off. There's a comment from this one's from Instagram, and if you don't know, we're Outside Pods on Instagram, and this comment is from OneNonLYQ, ONENONLYQ, and the question. This one, I think I'm actually going to throw it to Tiffany because it's design patents and utility patents, validity and effectiveness for upcoming shoe designers and engineers going against large brands. Now, that's just a statement, but I kind of want to throw it out there and throw it over to you, Tiffany, to see if you can kind of give us some insight to design patents and utility patents and a little bit about how those work if you know that.
Yeah, so I'm pretty familiar with the patent world. As a product engineer or product designer, you're always dealing with patents, I would say. So a design patent, right, is on the aesthetics. And so usually there's like I remember the Nike mag when they did that in '85, they got a design patent on it, right? And it was the look of the silhouette, right? So it has to include certain things. Like you can't get a design patent on just anything. And then a utility patent is actually something that functions, like something that does something in a particular manner with a particular set of circumstances and gives you a certain result. And so both are very, very important patents to get. And they're, you know, definitely if you're a small brand, you have to watch out. You know, if you're going to go in the auto lacing world, for example, there's a ton of patents in there from Nike. And you need to check them all. You know, you need to make sure you're designing outside of those. Otherwise, it could be a big headache from time to time. Same with design patents. You know, there's been several over the years where people have copied like certain shoe designs. And, you know, like big brands like Nike can go in and fight those and get the smaller brands to stop making them. And that's the kind of the whole point. You can have sort of exclusivity on a concept or an idea on the utility or design for a certain period of time. Now, patents used to only be 7 years, but they're much longer now. I can't remember the total length of time, but it's like 10 or 14 years now. It depends on the case, you know. But yeah, you can kind of own a concept for a certain period of time if you can get a patent, which is kind of a big deal, but it's also a big deal to pay attention to when those patents expire. Because if you're interested in a certain area and you realize, oh man, these patents are expiring, you can jump all in there, right? And so
interesting.
Yeah.
So
you can kind of almost like catch somebody slipping if they're not paying attention.
Yeah.
You can kind of slide in there and like scoop up the patent in a sense.
Well, no, so not really. So take Boost, for example, right? Boost patent kind of ran out a few years ago, I think, and that's why some other brands are able to kind of use a similar formulation. Like some portion of their patent ran out. And so it opened it up basically that it now becomes like a general use thing. So you can't jump back in and patent it again. It becomes part of the public domain, if you will. And so, but you can use it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting. So is that why PUMA can use their version of Boost now? Yeah.
It also depends. Puma's using it now. New Balance, I think, has a kind of a version of it that looks the same. And so I don't know if Boost or Adidas originally got a design patent on the visual or just a utility patent on it, which would be on kind of the chemistry and how they make it. But either way, both of those brands either worked around it or the patents expired and they jumped in there.
Wow, that's crazy.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, the patent world
that's good to know.
Is pretty complex. And a few years ago, it actually changed to, it was like the first person to submit. And now I'm not a patent attorney and I don't pay a ton of attention to the law of it. I just have been involved with this, so we'd have to double check on all this. But the first one to submit on a concept technically gets to own it and gets the first patent. So you want to be the first to file. Like first to file is very, very important nowadays. Because if someone else files before you and they can prove that they have like prior art. So prior art is like, for example, on Back to the Future. In the movie, technically, when the movie came out, is the art of the Back to the Future shoe, even though we never made it until, 2011. So
right.
In that sense, they could show that they had prior art. It's the same thing if like you try to replicate like some artists, some famous artists. There's prior art showing what it actually is, so you can't always get a patent on things like that.
That's crazy.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So
that's interesting.
I have a question kind of related to that. For people that probably might not know so much about that or understand it, like what does like a typical maybe not typical, but like in your experience, what is like the number of patents that might end up in one particular shoe?
Oh man, it totally depends, right? Like I'm thinking, just because I'm more familiar with Nike product, so if you have a Nike Air product, all the Air patents from back in the day, I would imagine most of them are expired at this time, but probably some still exist. So like if you have a Nike Air product, you might have a patent on an airbag. If it has like probably React or any kind of relatively new foam, there's probably patents on that. You might have a design patent on it. If it has auto lacing in it, there's definitely a ton of patents on that technology. If there's a particular material like knit, maybe how they might have utility patents on knit. You could be, I think like auto lacing shoes in particular, you're probably looking at maybe 20 patents in that shoe. So it all depends on the age of it, and it depends on if patents have been granted, right? Because the process of applying for a patent, so patent pending versus patent granted, that can be a long process sometimes.
That's crazy.
So do you know if someone could make something in that interim?
Well, that's where
like patent pending versus patent granted.
Yeah, so that's where it goes back to first to file. So if you're the first to file on that concept, and after you file, other people start to make or produce. If you get that patent, you can ask them to cease and desist, right? You can ask them to shut down. So it's all about when that patent actually gets granted and who gets to file it first. So it can be very complicated.
That's amazing. But that's, I imagine it at the end of the day, it protects the, a business and it all makes sense. But it does, for a small business, and in this question in particular, coming from a small business angle, if you are trying to start a sneaker brand, you've definitely got to pay attention to those things, and you've almost got to be absolutely original out of the box, and that's a super hard thing to do. Even a lot of things that we see today are derivatives of something else, and you really need to know like how much of a derivative it actually needs to be in order to protect yourself from getting in trouble. But so that's cool though. I mean, that's actually cool. I feel like we should do a deeper dive into that sort of stuff. Maybe one of these days we do a show where we do a deeper dive into that and really talk to people.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of absolutely. And to the other side of it, there's companies that get patents on concepts. Like, I actually think Allbirds might have a few patents where they're open. So they say anyone can use them because they want to advance the entire industry. And so in that case, you make it public knowledge basically, and you share it so that you can help advance everyone together. Like, that's a whole different way to look at patents, like that you're just creating it so that everyone can use it.
Yeah, it's
I don't know if that's actually called a patent versus it might be called something different, but they actually have the prior art. Like, they're the first ones to show it, but then they share it with everyone instead of holding it for only themselves.
Yeah, it's almost like open source coding for like exactly. Computer engineering, right? So that's cool.
Didn't Nick, you're a car guy. Didn't Tesla do that to like the big three about the battery or something like that? About the tech in the Teslas that the big three could use it?
So my understanding is that was the initial like goal, right? With the original Roadster. I don't know how that's progressed. Tiffany might have a better idea, because it was one of those things where it became a hot topic for a while, because the auto industry is so petty in that nobody wants to change because there's big oil money behind it. And I think the big three kind of tried to do the same thing that they did in the 50s with the Tucker cars, where they just figured they could push Tesla out. I don't know if that actually I know that their supercharger network was originally designed to be something that could support other vehicles, other charging systems, but that doesn't mean that they necessarily did it for free, right? Because they can still charge people to use those stations, that they just built them to support other vehicles, supposedly. But Tiffany, do you know about that at all? I'm not sure.
Not specifically, but it does sound familiar. I think Tesla has done a few things where they've shared it with the world to advance. But, sometimes that's a marketing ploy. Like sometimes it's like, if you're going to try and patent something and you're not going to get it because maybe someone else did it, you might come out and say like, hey, we're going to just share this with the world instead, right? So it's a little bit of a political strategic game, I think, too. I'm a fan of there not being patents, to be honest. Like,
really?
Actually, I think because you can lock up ideas with patents, and there can be other people inventing amazing things. Like, we have such an amazing inventive culture, like human society in general, so inventive. You could create something that locks out someone else from doing something that you never thought possible. Yep. And you're like, on some level, I think patents are inhibiting society's growth. So I'm a fan of a patent-free society, and granted, the big brands and the people with the marketing dollars are gonna probably win in that scenario. But if as an inventor myself, as an engineer, if I come up with something and someone can take it and build upon it and make it better, they should. I think they should go for it. Like, it's only up to me to come up with something even better. So I like the challenge and competition of it.
That's awesome.
I like the idea of that. My concern with that, I guess, is the situation where say you do create an amazing product and you put your product out to market and you start selling it, and then some big brand decides, oh, we're just going to do what Tiffany created and make it, and they have the marketing dollars and the spend to kind of just steal your idea and like sell it for themselves. Like I guess that's where kind of where my concern is, and I guess that's where my mind goes when I think of patents and stuff like that.
Do you mean
it's much more difficult now though with social media? Like you're gonna have to have a good story, one, and two, if you're a small business and that's the scenario, likely you can't defend the patent with the big brands anyways, because they'll just draw it out super long and you can't pay those legal fees anyways. So it starts to become a catch-22 in that, like, if you make a patent, you have to be able to defend it against everyone. And if you get multiple challenges, or you're trying to defend it against multiple people, that is very expensive.
Yeah, I can't think of the specific example, but I remember reading a few years back an example of it was basically like a lawyer had somehow like acquired through like whatever company he purchased, or potentially like a failing business or something like that, acquired patent rights or something like that, and his whole thing was basically to prevent other people from doing it. So he would essentially, or his law firm would essentially sue people that tried to create, I can't remember the example, but you've seen it in movies, right? It's kind of a common storyline in movies, but I remember reading it probably like 7 or 8 years ago. And I think that's also one of the things that I like, the idea of things being kind of just like patent free or like open source, because it really is. It's kind of like, even on the marketing side, like I've lived on that side of the business for so long, and I love the idea of the competition because it makes everybody better. There are a few bad apples that kind of take advantage and might ruin that scenario, but generally I think most of society is good, and the competitiveness is what pushes us further, in my opinion. But I don't know.
Yeah, there's definitely people out there that they try to come up with ideas and patent them so that other like big brands have to go buy the patent from them, and that's how they make money, right?
Yeah.
And so there's this whole other infrastructure around patents of people making money and stuff like that, and it's kind of fascinating actually. It's got its own entire ecosystem, really.
Yeah, you hear a lot of that, especially in the tech space. You hear about that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, well, that's a big shout out to one non-LYQ over on Instagram. Obviously, you got us all riled up already. Lots of good insight there. I think we should really. I honestly feel like we should do a show on that, kind of really digging in to find out a little more details about that. We'll see if we can get that going. All right, one more from the fans. This one is from J.A. Dillon. J.A. Dillon on Instagram, and the question is the rise of PUMA and why it's succeeding so much in the last 12 months. So I guess the question would be, is PUMA succeeding? And is there a difference you have seen in the last 12 months? Nick, I'll go ahead and throw this one to you to start things off.
I definitely think that PUMA has made some pretty good moves in the last 12 months. I don't know that has resulted in dollar, increased revenue for them, but I do think that the previous 2 to 3 years for PUMA were really challenging in that they didn't see a lot of success, and they released a lot of in my opinion, really great core product, right? Like they released they released a lot of retro product around the R698, the Disc Blaze. Those are shoes that if you haven't tried them, I think you should try them. They're inexpensive and they're incredibly comfortable for shoes that came out in the 90s. But what I do think where they're really elevating their game right now is not only just stepping into basketball, and I don't know that that's been successful yet because you see a lot of the shoes still sitting at the stores, but keep in mind that it's not, the fact that a shoe doesn't sell out doesn't mean it's not successful, right? People buy the shoes all the time that don't necessarily sell out. But I do think with the kind of chunkier running shoes, the RSX stuff, the partnerships, and I know you worked with them a little bit, Jacques, but the level of the partnerships and the level of creativity that they've had in pushing those products out, and the number of people that I see that have never worn a PUMA before on social media that aren't necessarily being paid, that definitely has been a game changer for them, in my opinion. So I think a lot of it is them stepping out of their comfort zone. You know, if you look at like the last 3 to 4 years and them really going with like traditional, this is our old product, we're going to retro it the same way that, you know, Nike has always had success in just bringing back the Air Max models or bringing back the Jordans, and that doesn't work for a lot of the brands because they didn't have the same level of success the first time through. And I think with Puma,
right,
they're, you know, you can buy like their pinnacle running shoe from the 90s, like the OG R698s, black and pink. That was like probably a $90 shoe retail. You can probably find them right now for $20 or $30 brand new in stores and on eBay and discount sites. And you will never see, you know, a Nike shoe that low at that level. Like an Air Max 1 in like University Red is never going to be below, you know, $50 or $60 because there's just a bigger demand for it. So I do think Puma has done really well. It's to me, it's all about them getting out of their comfort zone, you know.
I think they've done a good job. And full disclosure here, I have worked with Puma quite a bit in the last 6 to 9 months. But as always, I keep it absolutely 100 and tell you exactly how I feel. I think they've been doing a good job for the last little bit. I think marketing-wise, they've been really getting their name out there, and I think that really makes a difference as far as, like, I think everyone knew about Puma, but I don't think Puma really played in this space very well, and I think now that sort of perspective on Puma is changing. And, you know, it's one of those things where when people see influencers or other people wearing them, they start to think, oh, maybe it is okay to wear Pumas. It is kind of cool. And one of the shoes that I think is really helping bridge that gap is the new RSX, which is based on like their running shoe from like the 80s. And I think that shoe is definitely making a bit of a change. The basketball shoe, the Clyde Court Disrupt, or the Clyde Court, I guess is just called. I think people are starting to kind of come around to it when they see how comfortable it is. They are using their own version of Boost. I guess you wouldn't technically call it Boost. They call it, but it's a hybrid tech with their Ignite and then their version of Boost, which I think is called Infinergy. I could be totally wrong about that. I might be mixing up the titles, but seems like they're doing a good job there. But I think if they continue to build on what they started in 2018, I think 2019 could be really exciting for them. I really hope that they continue to be active, continue to be like in your face, continue like not apologize for who they are and their legacy product, and just being out there and putting it out in front of people. I think it could be really exciting for them, but we'll see. Also, and when speaking about Puma, something else that's interesting that they're doing, and this was actually mentioned in the from, who was that from? There was a comment
Xavier
about it from Xavier Jones, about companies playing in the social justice space. Nike obviously did it with Kaepernick, and Puma is going after it pretty tough with the shoe that they did for Trayvon Martin, and now they're doing one about prison reform. And I personally like that they're being so active in the political space. I think part of it is, yes, it's part of it is marketing and being known for a brand that's, you know, that cares about the community, but also like the money that's being funneled into the community, and the money that's being used as a result of these things are definitely helping the community. So I'm all for it, and I think it definitely helps out. So I think it's good. I think it's genuine, especially with like them having Meek Mill on their roster. It's obviously something that's important to him, like for the prison reform, and, you know, with Jay-Z being the head, these are topics that fall close to heart for those influencers and those people that are helping run that business. So to me, it makes sense that they're playing in that pool or on that playground.
Yeah, and I think like Xavier was asking, you know, kind of how we felt about the, you know, if it's just the brands trying to show that they're woke in the current like political climate. And I think that it's awesome that people are, you know, like Xavier, myself too, like just very cautious when you see the kind of stuff that's going on. But in the case of like PUMA specifically, you know, I look at that in a completely different way. I see it as like, you know, Meek Mill just got out of prison. He's looking at ways to change his life because he probably thinks a little bit differently after having, you know, his freedom taken away for a while. And whether that was wrong or right, we don't need to get into that. But like when you have those experiences that change you like that, I think that it's great to be able to have the brand behind him, you know, both financially and you know, with like just general reach of consumers, because, you know, Meek Mill, even though he's connected to Jay-Z and Jay-Z's been wanting to, you know, like support his like efforts, when you have a big, massive company that's worth, you know, millions or billions of dollars, it just changes the level of reach that you can get and things that you can change when you want to create change. And to me, that's, you know, at the core of what's going on here. I do think that brands try to step into that. You know, like we've talked a lot about kind of sustainable products and stuff over the past year, and there's a lot of brands that step into, you know, a particular, you know, kind of initiative, and then you never hear anything about it. And that's when I think it kind of shows their true colors of like, well, did they really care about that, or did they just throw some money at it to see if they could sell some product? But I think it's a great question, though. I mean, it, you know, to me, like the prison reform and the Trayvon Martin stuff, having PUMA put any kind of energy or money towards those things to help improve is awesome.
I think it's an interesting time, and it's a very powerful time, actually. You know, but it kind of takes me back to, I don't know if you remember when Apple started to do those ads about PC, and like if you were a PC person, you were like this type of person, but if you were an Apple person, you were this type of person. So that's kind of what I think of with some of these social causes. They're trying to say like, look, this is what we stand for. If you're like us, join us. You know, use our product, and it's part of feeling included in something, and now it's on social causes, which is really fascinating. So I think the brands have seen variable levels of success, and also, I mean, when Nike talked about Colin Kaepernick, like, I mean, that was talked about for so long. They got so much free advertising out of it that it was a huge beneficial. It was just so beneficial to them. But at the same time, I actually think they, you know, that matches kind of their ethos and their whole kind of vision and what they stand for. So it's pretty fascinating to watch how it evolves in the future. Although I think we talked about this before, you know, like, is it going to get to a point of oversaturation at some time? I don't know.
I think so, definitely. You know, the interesting thing about that is like a lot of this is because all of us we're in a time where everything is hypersensitive, right? And that's not just like politics. That's like throwing the social media stuff on top of politics. So you have these two things that like completely elevate every little thing. You know, like somebody can be upset about the littlest thing, and it turns into a big thing, and people jump on it because they want to be supportive or they want to, you know, see change. And sometimes that's like genuine, and sometimes they're just jumping on the bandwagon to, you know, that because that's what social media tends to do. But I do think that because of the political climate and the elevated like tensions that are there, even the littlest things that we might not have seen it 2, 3, 5, 10 years ago, but brands are always aware of what's going on, right? And a lot of times brands end up separating themselves from, you know, individuals within their brand, within the company that have political views in order to stand for something, because it's something that, you know, a large group of people, you know, can get behind. And I think that because politics is so sensitive right now, you're seeing a lot of brands kind of try to, it's almost become like the thing to do, in the same way that like having a cool office for a company was 10 or 15 years ago, where it's like, hey, we have cereal in the office, that makes us cool, or we have, you know, free soda, or whatever those things are, right? Like we have nap pods, like all these things are really trendy, but all of us are like more sensitive to these social injustice things because we can't get away from them whether we want to or not. They're going to be in our face on social media. The politicians are going to throw it in our face to try to get us to be, you know, one way or another. And because of that, it almost makes us, I don't know, like kind of like numb to it in a sense, you know. But I do think that at its core, with a lot of what's going on, it's genuine right now. It's just that we're all kind of just like on pins and needles and eggshells or whatever, wanting to know what's going to happen next.
It's definitely a weird time in the world, and you know everyone is definitely sensitive to this sort of stuff. So. Yeah, it's interesting. So, you know, fans, you know, I shouldn't call you guys fans. Audience, I don't know, audience, friends. That's the word, friends. Let us know what you think. Do you think brands are genuine when they get involved in social causes, whether that's building community centers or something like this with PUMA, where they're doing and getting involved in prison reform? Let us know what you think at Outside Pods on all of the platforms. Moving on to something I'm going to say is the future. AR Kicks, Augmented Reality Kicks. So there's a new app called Kicks, which probably should get a better name.
Branding by Jacques Slade.
Yeah, branding by Jacques Slade, branding lesson. So the app is called Kicks. It's in beta right now. It's from Wannabe, so I guess that's where the wanna comes, which lets you virtually try on your next pair of kicks. It looks pretty cool. I haven't actually had a chance to play with it, but it looks like they have some Nike product in there. They have some Adidas product in there. And basically what it is you use the app, the camera on your phone, and it literally puts shoes on your feet, and you can see how they look in person almost. I, for one, am all for this. I think it's really, really dope because it allows you to try on shoes that you may not ever really get a chance to see. And I know a lot of times, and this has happened quite a bit for me, where there's a shoe that I see it online and I'm like, oh, that's dope, that looks great, but then I put it on my feet and I see it on and I'm like, doesn't look as good as I originally hoped. So I guess for me, my thought is like, it has to have a couple things. One, it has to have a great toe down. Like the toe down perspective needs to be on point. I think that's, as a sneakerhead, that's something that I'm always paying attention to. The heel shot, how it looks from the back, always needs to look nice. And then like the side shot or the profile shot, like those need to be locked in. And from reading the article, which is over on TechCrunch, if you want to read it, you can actually walk in the shoes as well, and it'll show like you walking in the shoes. And I just think that's absolutely fantastic. It's really cool. This is the kind of stuff that I was super excited about early on when I found out about augmented reality. And obviously being in the sneaker world, I'm like, oh, that's really dope to be able to kind of have this augmented reality version of sneakers, or being able to put your sneakers on in that sort of way is where my mind went. Obviously, I'm not smart enough to put something like that together, but to see it happen, I think is pretty cool. And, you know, I think it opens up the door for even brands to try out silhouettes that they haven't even made yet. They're just like, oh, this is something we're thinking about. What do you guys think about this? Use the Kicks app. Don't use a better name and try these out. But so I think it's cool. So I don't know. I think it's a pretty cool thing. What do you guys think?
Well, to me, it's all about the accurate representation, right? Like, I don't want to try. I mean, I think it's cool. I do want to try it, but if it doesn't, if I, for example, try on a pair there and I buy it and I get them home and they don't look the same, that's what I'm worried about. So I'm curious as to how they're doing that. I'm assuming they already kind of took care of that. But that's kind of what I would worry about. The other thing is like how materials lay. And so like, certain materials and shoes, if the shoe isn't like super form fitted, if you will, if it's a little bit baggy, I'm wondering if you're going to see it or notice in this app. And so how certain materials lay, like, there's some wrinkles here and there sometimes in some shoes, and like, I'm wondering, and maybe I'm being way too nerdy and specific, but I'm wondering if it kind of shows that kind of thing to be really accurate representation, or if it just makes all shoes look good on you.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it has to be really close to real, right? There's so many shoes that just don't look right, where you could take a great picture from a certain angle or from a certain perspective and make it look great, right? And marketing people have figured this out anyway, right? You see it on all the websites that you're buying sneakers from, where it's like, oh, these shoes look great. Does it look the same on your feet? Probably not. But I do think that this technology, and Jacques kind of hinted at it, right? Like, if you think about like what happened with the Air Max, kind of, I forget what they called it, but the Air Max Challenge, where Sean Wotherspoon got to do his Air Max 97 Air Max 1 hybrid, where that was originally a contest, right? Where like the handful of people got to design or come up with their ideas, and then the winner got to actually have the shoe created, and Sean was the winner and that shoe was created. This, like Jacques said, could turn into something that's really powerful for brands if they're able to let people like customize the shoes, pick colors, or it's almost like taking like Nike ID or My Adidas and putting it on steroids in order to determine what could come out. I see that as like the biggest potential value for like this use. It is cool to be able to see like the examples that they have, like showing like skateboarding and walking around and kind of like showing the different views of your foot is definitely better than what I've ever seen in any kind of augmented reality sneaker app. But I think Tiffany's point about the materials, like for me, that's like a huge thing, right? If I know that the materials are nice, that's a better selling point, and I know that they like look the way I want them to look on the shoe. That's a better selling point to me than just being able to see a shoe, on my foot in some sort of AR app. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, because if you just pay attention to the return policies, you can order it, as long as you have the money to float it, you try it on and then you send it back, where you get the real thing. And this would be super helpful if it was super accurate. Yeah. And let's be totally clear. This is marketing. This is just to get you to buy stuff. Like I know I'm talking about the cool parts of it, but really this is just to get you to buy stuff. It reminds me a little bit. There's an app called House. Oh yeah, where you can put virtual furniture into your house. So I expect it to look at least as good as that. I haven't bought anything from House yet, but I've used it to toss around ideas of like, oh, what would this chair look like here, or what would this painting look like on this wall. So I think it's pretty cool in that regard. So, but at the end of the day, again, this is a way to sell you stuff. So as cool as I think it is, I want to make sure we can make it clear to the audience that this is about buying things with all the 3D geometry and algorithms and neural networks that they use to make it happen. It's really just to get the coin out of your pocket. So don't lose sight of that and all of the coolness. I thought I saw your studio on House. I wasn't sure though. It looked like the same background, but I wasn't sure. That's very funny. I'm moving on up here, Tiffany. I'm moving on up here. That's funny. But moving on to a story that I'm interested to hear about, and it's about the YEEZY Boost. Apparently, in I believe, was it the last 6 months or the last quarter of 2018, YEEZY sneaker sales grew by 600%. Now, my thought is I feel like this number is a little misleading,
but I guess it's not misleading at all. They made more Yeezys, and that's why they sold more Yeezys. I feel like they throw this number out there as if there's a larger demand for Yeezys, but I think it's just like they made more and people wanted them all along and they were finally able to buy them. I don't know. I feel like I'm reading into this. Maybe I'm reading into this the wrong way. I mean, it's exciting, obviously, that Yeezys are selling and that more Yeezys are selling, but I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they seem like to be celebrating it, but it's not. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to get that out. I just feel like it's just the numbers are bigger just because they made more, not because there was a bigger demand for them. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that obviously they've talked about upping production. You know, Kanye wants to have everybody have access to Yeezys, and I think that Adidas is helping him make that happen. And if that's his goal, then that's going to continue to happen, right? You're going to continue to see bigger production numbers. You're going to see more profits, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there is more demand, because a lot of what happens now on the sneaker market, if you have, let's say you have, 1 million pairs of every Yeezy or 5 million pairs of every Yeezy, those shoes eventually are going to sell out at retail. None of them are going to get discounted because they want the brand to, the Yeezy brand to have as much brand equity as possible. So all these retailers that got these shoes are going to sit on them, because eventually somebody will come in and see them and say, hey, I didn't know I could still get these Yeezys. I mean, in LA, I've probably been to, in the past like 2 to 3 weeks, I've probably been to 7 or 8 different sneaker stores, and there are still Yeezys sitting in almost every store. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that it's actually a good thing that people can come in and see it and buy it. But what happens when they sell through a lot of that stuff, like on the YEEZY website or the Adidas website, is those shoes are bought and then they're put onto another marketplace, right? So if they go from 1 million shoes to 2 million shoes, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be 1 million more people that want that Yeezy. That just means that all the people that got them on Adidas.com or Yeezy Supply or wherever took them, and they're either sitting on them, or they have them in a consignment store, or they have them on StockX or GOAT or eBay or in Stadium Goods. Like, there's so many places where people just can almost like not for free, but like list the shoes and like just wait for somebody to come along and buy them. So everyone kind of has this perception that they might be able to make a little bit of money off of a pair of Yeezys. The reality is, like, that demand hasn't really changed. It might go up and down a little bit, but it's not going to go up 6 times over the course of a quarter, unless there's something like absolutely insanely different about the shoes. And like the last shoes in this quarter from Yeezy and Adidas were pretty nice. Like the static pack stuff was kind of hit on the reflective materials and stuff that sneakerheads have always enjoyed and have always wanted.
Right.
But to think that it went 6 times that amount, I think it's a little misleading, and the shoes are just shifting. It's just shifting from who's going to sit on those shoes, right? They can sit on the Yeezy Supply site, or they can sit in, the buyer's hands, or the sellers on StockX or GOAT or whatever else. So I don't know. That's my
Or they're
opinion.
sitting in a huge warehouse at Adidas somewhere, right? Like, I mean, it's all a numbers game, right? So if you sell 10 of something and then you sell 60 of it, you just made 600%, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you sell 100 and then 600, it's the same thing. So I'm thinking more like that they may have sold 10,000 pairs on average, and now with this bigger launch, they'll sold 60,000 pairs. And so that's a 600% growth, right? So it's all relevant to the numbers, I think. I mean, good for them for orchestrating this 600% sales growth. Like, that's a great story for them. But the moment you start to look into it, it's not like you went from making millions to trillions. I mean, they're not at that level. I mean, if they were, we would hear about it. I guarantee we'd hear about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
if they sold through 1 million or so pairs, they'd say something.
Yeah, that would be talked about. Like, It's big time. So yeah, it's all relevant. I mean, I think it's good. I'm glad the Yeezy brand's doing well. I hope it is doing as well as they say, because I think it's going to be challenging if they're like making it seem like it's doing better than it really is.
Yep.
Interesting. All right, I'm going to stir the pot a little bit here. Do you guys, either of you, see a day when Yeezys, like the 350 V2s, are just in store like an Air Force One or just like an inline sneaker?
I think that is eventually Kanye's goal. I think Adidas has done that with the Ultra Boost, so I think that it wouldn't be a surprise to me if that happens. And I think that part of why that almost has to happen is in order for the sales to actually grow, like new consumers need to see the shoe, and new consumers are only going to see that shoe in person. That, you know, in my opinion, like going into an Adidas Original store or, you know, their Foot Lockers and stuff like that.
I agree with Nick in that. I think that's what they want to happen, but I think if you look at all the big ones like the Air Force One, the Dunk, now I wasn't paying attention to sneakers when they came out, but I don't think they were like huge when they came out. You know, they're pretty mellow. They fit across a whole bunch of people, where the Yeezys tend to be pretty polarizing, right? Like their designs are pretty out there and aggressive and different. So I'd be surprised. I mean, can you imagine anyone from a 3-year-old to a 70-year-old wearing a Yeezy right now? I mean, I kind of can, but maybe not. I don't know. It would be weird to me to see everyone in Yeezys, but again, like some of these futuristic movies, I could actually see it happening. So we'll see. I think they definitely are trying.
Yeah, I think they're definitely trying as well, and I feel like that's something Kanye would definitely want. But I guess my concern when I think about it, Tiffany, is does that devalue Kanye's brand as... Because I feel like a lot of his brand sustains on the hype around him. And if the hype around him or his footwear dies, is he the asset that he used to be? Or like, will he be comfortable as like the inline sneaker designer? Or is it just... Go ahead.
Well, I think it's like Michael Jordan, right? Like, so no one predicted his brand would become sort of household, right? Like,
right.
And so, but he managed to have the Air Jordan 1, which is across everywhere, right? Like, you can't go 30 feet without seeing an Air Jordan 1, more or less. But then he still has a lot of hype shoes. So I think it's totally possible, but I think it has to be more relatable, and I think there needs to be more time. Like, the Yeezy brand is so young still. Like, I just don't think there's been enough time for it to develop and grow. I think he can keep it fresh, and he can keep it hype, and then he can have some standard shoes. You know, I think he thinks he can have an entire Nike of his own, where he's, you know, cranking out 1,000 different silhouettes a year. You know, like, I think he has grand vision. So I think it's possible. I mean, why not?
And messing with Kanye, messing with Kanye, he seems to be able to do whatever he wants. So don't. I guess we shouldn't doubt the man.
I do think that it's interesting to think about that, though. Like, a lot of people don't, you know, that's something that's like more of a societal thing right now. A lot of people don't understand the, you know, the level of the amount of work that goes into getting people to a certain level of fame or success. You know, and this is totally kind of off tangent, but I just listened to a podcast with MKBHD, right? And, you know, he's one of those YouTubers that's so incredibly successful and so top level, in my opinion. But, you know, he was talking about how he literally uploaded, you know, his first 100 or 200 videos with less than 100 subscribers. And to me, that's the thing that I think Kanye kind of faults him. It's one of, like, in my opinion, one of his kind of faults is that he has these big visions, but a lot of times in order to make something big come together and actually be successful, you've got to be able to have, you know, trust in dozens of people, if not hundreds or thousands of people on the scale that he's trying to do things. And that, I think, is the biggest challenge, you know, for him to get to that level, right? Because, like Tiffany said, he doesn't have the you know, 40 years of Nike history. He may have, you know, 20 or 30 years of things that he likes. You know, I think, like, as you get older, you recognize a lot of things from your past that could become something for your future. But in order to do that, like, he can't possibly have the last say on, let's say, 1,000, you know, sneaker designs. Like, it's just not feasible for him to do that, because in order for him to give feedback and refine those designs and make them what he wants, that's a lot of work to go through and do that for I mean, imagine that. Like, even if you broke it down into day, that would mean that he'd be doing 3 a day. Like, the amount of time that it would take him to...
It's manageable. It's actually, I think it's manageable.
I think so, but I don't know that he has the trust of that many people to make those things happen as he's doing it, right? Like, he seems to be one of those people that is very controlling, and that's been a very successful thing for him. And why he's been successful, because he's so detail oriented about a lot of the things that he wants. But that would take so many people to be able to crank out that many, that I just don't know that he would ever allow him, you know, like, kind of rein in the chaos that he seems to create. And maybe that's all just show and, you know, trying to keep his name in everybody's, you know, feeds, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I think, you know, he took on music, right? And he became successful in music, right? And now he took on fashion and footwear, you know? So it's like, I think it's interesting. He's still learning, and, you know, by no means am I defending him, but I respect that he goes after things that he wants. And
oh yeah, absolutely.
He tries new things, and he ends up being successful. And so, you know, he's diving into this footwear thing, and he's what, 5, 6, I should know this, maybe 10 years in now. So he's actually, you know, he's starting to learn, and I have no doubt this isn't the last industry he's going to get into. Like, he's already proven he's successful in this, and then he's probably going to go to something else, you know. But if he chose to stay in footwear, who knows? I mean, he could create his own brand and just be like, no, change that, make this look like that, done. Like, it could be an hour meeting, and he just went through 10 shoes, and you make those changes, right? Like, if they sell,
maybe
you make
so.
those changes.
That would be so crazy. I mean, imagine seeing,
Super
like,
crazy.
You know, 5 years from now, seeing, like, all having us talk about Nike, Adidas, Yeezy, Puma, Asics, you know, like, as if it's, you know, it's on that level of like, you know, I mean, that would just be so insane. I'd love to see him do it, just because it's so crazy. Like,
that'd be to think of, like, the Yeezy brand, like that.
I mean,
that'd be actually pretty cool.
Think 10 years ago when he just started, did you ever think there would be a Yeezy brand? No way, right? And now we're like, it's just commonplace. It's just, everybody knows there's a Yeezy brand. Like,
yeah, everybody knows. Yeah, and Yeezy is definitely a brand for sure at this point. He parlayed that music success into something way bigger than I think any of us ever expected. So kudos to him. Kudos to Mr. Ye. So quick transition here to Nike. So Nike is in a bit of hot water right now over their shoe, the Air Max 720, and it's not even. I kind of feel like it's not even the Air Max 720, because I feel like we've seen this logo before on other shoes. But there is currently a petition about the Air Max 720, the shoe. It actually releases this week. Because the Air Max at the bottom, it's a stylized version of the word Air Max, and there's a request to recall it on over on change.org, because if you flip the logo upside down and you look at just a few of the letters, it's similar to the word Allah, which is obviously a sacred word in Islam, and the shape is very similar to the word Allah in Arabic. Now, you do kind of have to flip the shoe upside down and then turn the logo upside down and exclude the X and the A from the word, but it's definitely similar. So there's obviously a bit of controversy about that. There's a petition. It looks like when this article was originally posted that this is on January 28th. What's today? Is the 29th? Today's the 30th. There were 6,000 signatures. And as of right now, there are, I believe, about 17,000 signatures. About 17,500 signatures. And they are requesting that Nike stop selling the shoes because they consider it blasphemous and offensive to sell a product with the word Allah on it. And I imagine it doesn't help that it's the logos on the bottom of the shoe and that you're basically walking on the name of Allah, which I imagine the Muslim community is not going to take very lightly. Now, this is not the first time something like this has happened to Nike. I can't remember the shoe. I feel like it was Dennis Rodman's shoe that had this.
Tim Hardaway, the Air Bakin in 1997 was basically what happened then was it was a stylized logo. The Air logo on the back was stylized like in flames. Personally, I think it looked more like it seemed more legitimate concern then than what it is now, because you're having to cut apart the logo to get to the point of the people that are petitioning for this. But I do think that like back then Nike changed it. They recalled all the shoes that had that Air logo, and ever since then, when that shoe's come back out, it's just had a traditional Nike Air with the swoosh in between as the logo on the heel. But to your point, it was also on the heel, and they were quick to pull it off the market. It's kind of interesting this time around that they basically are saying that there isn't a similarity, and that they're not they're not planning on changing anything about the shoe.
Yeah. So Nike actually made an official statement to Hypebeast about it, and the statement is: Nike respects all religions, and we take concerns of this nature seriously. The Air Max logo was designed to be a stylized representation of Nike's Air Max trademark. It is intended to reflect the Air Max brand only. Any other perceived meaning or representation is unintentional. So they make it very clear that, I guess that they understand the concern and they get what people are saying, but there is no intentional correlation between the two. It's simply a stylized version of the Air Max logo, which is very interesting. And I get both perspectives. And this is something, where I guess, both sides have to kind of, put their arguments out, and the community or, the audience or consumer has to decide whether or not it's something that they want to support, or if it's something that they don't feel is intentional. And it's, I don't know how I feel about it. I feel like if it was just the logo, I think that would be one thing, but because it is a part of the logo within the words, I guess I don't see it as much as it would have been with the Air Bakin, where it was like the logo looked like the word, as opposed to this, where it's like three letters within the word are perceived. And the reason that happened is, for those that don't know, the logo combines the R from Air and the M from Max together to make one letter or one, I guess, character, and that's what allows really this to happen. And then obviously the A's are slanted. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I don't know where this will end up or what'll come of this, but it's definitely something interesting, and taking into account the response, and I guess the disrespect that the community has taken. It was started by a girl named, I'm probably going to damage her name here and to say this wrong, Saika Noreen. I don't know. It's SAIQANOREEN. If you want to check it out, the petition is on change.org. And if you want to see Nike's response to the petition, you can check that out over on Hypebeast. And you decide what side you're on. Again, the question for you as friends, let us know what side you're on in regard to this. And I guess not even really what side you're on, but just how you feel about the controversy as a whole. You don't really have to pick a side. Just let us know, what you think about it in general. And with that, I think that's going to wrap up the show today. It was a good show. But, before I go, so this is something that I thought about today when I was running. And I'm going to try to do this with everything that we do. I want to end the show on like a positive note every time. So, I'm going to pose a question to you guys, and it'll be the same question every week. I just want to know, tell me something that you're really excited about right now and something that you want to learn right now. So I'll start with you, Nick.
So something that I'm excited about right now, I'm actually going to be creating another YouTube thing soon that I'll share later, but I'm really excited about it.
Nice. Okay, I like that.
Something that I want to learn or something that I have recently learned?
Either way.
So I actually want to learn Japanese. That's one of my goals this year, is to start. So I took Spanish when I was in high school, and I use an app called Duolingo, which, I've kind of just been brushing up on it for the past 3 months.
Nice.
But that's on my list of things to learn. How about you, Tiffany?
Love it.
Well, those are great. Congratulations on both of those.
Sure.
Really excited. I'm just in the process of moving, so I'm really excited to be in the Bay Area and kind of experience all this. And I am learning patience in traffic. I want to learn more. I never grew up in the city or anything like that. So I'm using the trains and things like that, and you have to figure out logistics of getting to work, and it's so different in a big city. So if anyone has any good blogs or anything, please link them and tag me so I can learn how to get around in the city.
That's amazing. As for me, I something that I'm really excited about is motion graphics. I've been fascinated by it for a very long time, and I'm really starting to kind of dip my toe in it, and I want to use it as a way to make my videos better that I create on YouTube. So that's something that I'm really excited about, because I've been just dibbing and dabbing in that a little bit. And then something I want to learn is I want to be a better photographer. I think I take okay pictures now. But I really want to be able to, I feel like the composition of my pictures isn't where it needs to be. And that's something that I'm really excited to really pursue in 2019, is to get better at that, just because I think there's just a good opportunity there for me just to be better. And I think it'll help my videos as a whole. So those are kind of both of mine were very video centric, but yeah, those are kind of the things where I'm super excited about and things that I want to learn for this year. So cool. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it'd be cool to start ending the show on a positive note, on things that we're excited about, things that we want to learn to make ourselves better. So friends out there, let us know what you're excited about or something you want to learn. You can reach us at Outside Pods on all of the places. We're gonna get out of here. I am Jacques Slade. This is the Outside the Box podcast, where we talk about anything that we want, mostly sneakers and technology, because that's the worlds that we live in. You can find me at Cousteau all over the internet. That's Kustoo. I'm on all of the places, but that's really not important. Again, what you're here for is the mind of Nick and the mind of Tiffany, their insight, their intelligence, and just the witty banter that they provide on the show. So, Nick, tell them where they can find you.
At Nick Engvall, NickEngvall on all platforms. You can also find me at Sneaker History on all platforms. But I think as our conversation on patents clearly showed, both Jacques and I really are here to learn from Tiffany. So Tiffany, let them know how they can connect with you.
True.
Tiffany Beers. You can find me on Instagram and YouTube or at Outside the Pods. Now, Jacques, I mean, I think we left one thing out of the show. Relationship advice. Uh-oh. Is it coming next time? Can we talk about relationships next time?
I would love to talk about relationship advice. And with that being said, friends, if there are some things that you're going through, if there is a woman you're pursuing or there's a man that you're pursuing, I'm here to help you. At the Outside the Box podcast, we do it different. And we're here to help you. We're here to lead you. We're here to teach you. If we need to hold your hand, if you need us to be in your ear during the date, you know, that's the kind of podcast this is. We're here to help. We want to make your lives better in things on a positive note. Thanks for reminding me, Tiffany. So don't forget to submit your questions for relationship advice. Outside Pods everywhere. We're here for you. All right, guys. With that being said, as always, we appreciate you. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed another show I did because I get to talk to these two amazing individuals. We will see and or talk to you guys next week. So have a good week. Peace.
See ya.